Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's How to Raise Funds for Your Cricket Club webinar. We're in partnership today with Sport England and also the ECB. So we have Justin Preston joining us from the ECB. We have the wonderful Becky Evans joining us from Sport England to talk about the Movement Fund. And we've also been joined by Simon Clark, one of our recent successful crowdfunding project owners, who's going to be sharing their advice, hints and tips on how to raise money through Crowdfunder and, of course, access the Movement Fund as well. We are recording today's session. Don't worry, you're not going to feature in the session itself or in the recording. We are obviously using the chat box as well. So please do use that chat box to introduce yourselves. Let us know where you're joining us from today. Maybe a little bit about your club, your organisation, or even your crowdfunding campaign idea. Maybe you have a live project already. So do feel free to post any of that into the chat box. Let's keep it as interactive as we can. So a little bit of housekeeping then before we get started. We have allowed an hour for this session, and that does include a Q&A at the end. So as I mentioned with that chat box, please do put any questions in there as well, and we can field those to the relevant member of the panel throughout the session. In terms of the recording, we will make sure that we circulate that with you after the event, along with the slides and any relevant links to resources that we discuss, so that you can have everything that you need in order to take the next steps with your crowdfunding campaign. In terms of this being a live session, if you do have any issues with your internet connection, the best thing to do is to leave the webinar and follow the link that you were sent from Hey Summit to come straight back into the live room. You might find that you've lost any of the previous information in the chat box, so please just do pop a message in and we can bring you up to speed if we need to. Okay, so for some of you here today, you might be familiar with crowdfunding. For some of you, it might be a completely new concept. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what crowdfunding is and a little bit about the Crowdfunder UK platform. So crowdfunding, in its essence, is going out to your community and raising money, gathering donations and pledges from the community of people around you or your crowd. I'm sure all of you are already doing this in various ways, whether that's in-person fundraising, whether that's using other digital platforms to raise money in this way. Some of the things that set us apart at Crowdfunder UK from the other digital platforms that are on there are the things that we'll cover today. So things like being able to access match funding, for example, through your crowdfunding campaign and on our platform, being able to add rewards to your campaign. That's something which is very unique to our offer, if you like. So those things combined can be really powerful ways to engage your community and get them backing you and raising funds. So how does it work? Well, first of all, you would need to set up your campaign page on our website, so on our platform. That's your opportunity to really talk about who you are, what you're doing, why you need to raise the money, and of course, how much you need to raise. So, setting your target, making sure that that campaign page is really engaging for your community of supporters. So, trying to look with a wide lens when you're thinking about that community, not just focusing on your existing members or those that are engaging with cricket and your kind of participants. Think about the wider community as a whole as well. And that will help you when it comes to creating the copy and telling the story on your page, and also with things like rewards as well. It's then up to you to actually promote that page and tell everybody that you're crowdfunding. And we've got some brilliant guides for you to support you to do that really effectively. It's up to you to bring people to the page so that they can actually donate. You will, of course, sit kind of publicly facing on our website. However, just to make you aware that occasionally we do have people that will just search for projects within their area, search for projects that they would like to support. However, really the emphasis comes down to you as project owners to spread the word amongst your own crowds and try and build up that engaged audience. There is a huge amount of support that we offer that's all free to access to be able to support you and upskill you to do that really effectively. We are all here to see you get funded so that you can actually bring those wonderful projects to fruition. access that match funding if you are eligible, and obviously deliver on those rewards as well if you're listing those on your page. So why would you raise money in this way versus kind of face-to-face fundraising or traditional grant applications that you might already be doing? They all have their place. So this is just another string to your bow, if you like. It's really important to be thinking about financial sustainability and stability. And one way to do that is to think about diversifying those income streams. So actually crowdfunding can play a really important part in that, and it can play a really strong role in your overall fundraising strategy. You don't have to put all of your eggs in one basket when it comes to crowdfunding, but I would definitely be thinking about integrating it into your overall strategy of bringing income, revenue, or funds into the club. There was a really brilliant study that was done a little while ago, and actually, when it comes to crowdfunding, there's some really important benefits that come along with it. So, actually, building awareness around what you're doing, reaching new audiences, because it is so public facing, we are really encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone and try and engage with audiences beyond your core demographic. And what we've seen is that 86% of backers were actually first time backers, first time supporters that had not engaged with financial support to those projects. So actually a really wonderful way to build a new audience and also strengthen existing audiences as well. So it's a great way to foster relationships, strengthen partnerships, and actually mobilizing communities. So getting communities to support things that are having a positive impact, and also that support beyond financial. So things like offers in kind, volunteering. We've had wonderful things happen where things like the local builders merchants have said, we've noticed that you're crowdfunding to revamp the clubhouse. We've got an ex-display kitchen that we'd like to donate and we're happy to come and fit it for you. So it's not a financial donation, but actually it's a huge step forward when it comes to that project overall. And then, of course, the match funding that we have available that we're going to look at today. So we work with both regional and national partners in order to help distribute pots of money to eligible projects. One of the funds that we'll focus on today is the Movement Fund from Sport England. And Becky can talk you through eligibility for that. It's a really wonderful fund to get involved in. It's all about getting more people physically active. So really encouraging your community to get moving. I did a little bit of a data dive last night while I was thinking about today, and I wanted to highlight just some of the great numbers that we've seen coming through as part of the Movement Fund. So we've been working with Sport England to help distribute different pots of money over the years. We worked with the Active Together Fund, the Places and Spaces Fund, and now we're helping to distribute the Movement Fund. And this was launched a couple of years ago now, almost coming up to 2 years ago. And in that time, we've seen cricket projects specifically, and these are just ones that have said they're a cricket club somewhere in their project. We also see different organisations where there might be multi-sports, for example, but cricket might not be the primary focus. So that this number doesn't actually include those projects. So kind of traditional cricket clubs, we've seen raise more than £2 million for their projects over that time. We've seen 111, projects come through the platform, with cricket being their primary focus in that time. And on average, they're raising around £18,000, including a portion of that being match funding towards their projects. So already some really promising numbers from a relatively new fund. If we were to look at the numbers for Active Together as well, you would see that actually cricket is one of our top performing sports when it comes to the amount that they're raising and the amount of projects that are coming through the platform. So I'm going to hand over the reins now to Becky, who can talk you through the Movement Fund in a little bit more detail. Thank you for joining us, Becky.
Hi everyone. I'm at the moment struggling to get the video to work. It just says cannot start video.
Oh
So
no,
you might just have to listen to my voice and not see my face. I do apologise.
no worries at all. I'm going to remove myself and I will hand over to you. Just give me a shout because I can't see your face. So give me a shout when you want me to move the slides along.
Of course, yeah, no problem. I'm sorry about this. Um, I'm not entirely sure why it won't. Okay, right. I'm going to really quickly go through a couple of a bit of information to do with the Movement Fund. My name's Becky Evans. I'm one of the investment advisors working at Sport England and Investment Management team. I my day-to-day job is talking to people like yourselves about the projects that you have. So if you've ever phoned the helpline or dropped us an email, it's very likely that myself or one of my colleagues have got back to you. So we have got the Movement Fund open for applications currently, and as Zoe said, cricket clubs are one of our probably most common applicants and funded projects. So it's definitely a fund that's used to supporting cricket clubs. The fund is primarily there to challenge inactivity. So if you have a project in mind, you just need to make sure that you can explain how your project is going to mean that more people are going to be active as a result, and less people are going to become inactive. To be eligible to apply, you need to be a not-for-profit organisation. So a cricket club is absolutely fine. Might be a charity or a CIC. We can fund projects for up to 12 months, and the maximum award is 15,000. So from me reading the messages in the chat, I can see that a lot of people do have facility projects that in mind. So it might be updating your changing room facilities, it might be updating your clubhouse, which is great and is definitely something that we can fund. But you just need to be able to explain as a result of having these new change rooms or making your toilets more accessible, or improving your clubhouse. How does that mean that more people are going to be active? So it might be that it's going to provide a more positive experience for anyone accessing the club, and improving accessibility and inclusivity of your club members. Um, so we do have some priority groups, which you can see on the slide. People living on low incomes, older people, just to mention a few, people from more culturally diverse communities. I noticed there was one person looking to set up a female girls only hub. So girls aged 5 to 16. These are all some of our priority groups. So we're keen to support projects that are helping some of our priority groups into regular activity participation. We can offer 50% of your total project cost up to 15,000. So if you have a facility project that is above a 30,000 or above, we can contribute towards that project. And obviously then you're looking at crowdfunding to raise the remainder. Oh, Zoe, could you go to the next slide for me? So there's a couple of ways that you can apply to the Movement Fund. If you're not crowdfunding yet, you can go to the Sport England website, read through the information that's available on our website, so guidance under Movement Fund, and it will take you to the application portal where you can register on our portal. We'll send you a username and password and you complete an application that way. We'll go through your application to decide whether it will be a grant award or a crowdfunding award. If you all are already crowdfunding, that's brilliant. You can apply to the Movement Fund and any other match funding that you might be matched with on the Crowdfunder website. Next slide. Yep, so you will get an email or a notification to say that you've been linked with the Movement Fund. So linked to a Sport England as an extra funder, you'll have an application form to complete, and that will then come through to us. We will be able to assess it, and then we'll let you know our decision within 6 to 8 weeks. So you just need to make sure if you are setting your campaign live, or if you're setting up your campaign and you have a time scale, if your campaign is dependent on receiving funding from us, you just need to make sure that your campaign accounts for the time it will take for us to make that decision. Next slide. If you are successful, you'll be given a case officer from Sport England who will be able to support you through the crowdfunding process. Once your project is live, you need to raise 25% of your initial target from 25 unique supporters. Our pledge will then land. So, for example, if your total project, if your campaign target was 20,000 and we've offered you 10,000, you'd need to raise 5,000 from 25 unique supporters. Our £10,000 would then land on your page, which will then hopefully show your crowd that you're nearing your target and give everyone a boost and encourage to interact with your campaign. And then you need to raise the remaining 25% to lock in our pledge. On completion of your campaign, you will be able to download the funds that have been raised for your campaign, and then Sport England will pay your award directly into your account. Next slide.
I think the next slide might be me.
Okay, can I just so just to summarize then, if you're looking to make an application, it's really important that you let us know how your project's going to challenge inactivity, and also tell us why your project's needed. So, how do you know within your club community, your wider community, why will it make a difference? And how do you know it's something that's really needed? Thanks, Zoe. Hopefully, I can get my
Thank you.
camera to work for the questions and answers.
Amazing. Thanks, Becky. And Sport England are brilliant. So the Movement Fund team are on hand to answer any specific eligibility questions as well. So we'll make sure that we circulate the contact details and they'll be on a slide at the end too. I also wanted to highlight another fund that we've got going on at the moment. So, what's really wonderful about crowdfunding and applying for match funding is you can actually receive pots of money from multiple funders. So, we've seen a lot of crossover with kind of sports and physical activity projects that are being supported by the Movement Fund, and then maybe also by their local authority that may be one of our partners. Or in this instance, we've got a British Gas fund at the moment, which is the Energy for Tomorrow fund. So they're actually funding up to £40,000, not-for-profit organisations, which I know a lot of you will fall into. And it's helping community sports clubs to reach net zero. There's much more information on this on our website. The reason I wanted to highlight this one today is because the applications are closing soon. So they're actually closing on the 27th of March. So I will make sure that you've got access to the fund page for British Gas, but also for the Movement Fund and any of the other funders that we work with as well. So you can see if your project may be eligible for multiple pledges from our different partners. But just to highlight that this one's closing soon. Okay, so the hardest part, I would say, about crowdfunding, apart from creating that engaging page and telling your story in an impactful way, is actually going out there and connecting with your audience or your crowd in order to bring in those donations and pledges. It's probably the most daunting aspect as well for lots of people. There is a slight myth out there that once you've launched a crowdfunding campaign, if you shout about it all over social media and you keep just saying, you know, we're crowdfunding, please give us money, that will yield amazing results. Unfortunately, it won't, being brutally honest with you. The message will probably fall quite flat. And the reason for that is that people within your crowd or your community might not feel as if there's any kind of personal message in them for them. Sorry, it's not making that project really resonate with them. So there are a few really great ways that you can combat that. So first of all, thinking about your community as a whole and actually segmenting that, so splitting it up into smaller kind of bite-sized chunks, like smaller groups of people. And once you've worked out who sits within those different groups, like you can see on the slide here, so you might have all of your club members in one group, and that might be your existing, you know, customers or existing supporters. You might have local businesses that you could already have relationships with. They might already sponsor certain elements of the club, but you might not have those relationships yet, and you might want to develop them. So putting local businesses together in a group, thinking about friends and family, maybe other community groups that might use your venue. Educational venues as well are great. So schools and colleges nearby, for example. Once you have lists of contacts within those different groups, the next thing is figuring out what message actually works best and resonates best with each group. So going back to those local businesses, it could be that actually one of the rewards that you're going to list on your page is a sponsorship offer. And you might say, for the course of the live campaign, we would normally have our sponsorship rates at £500 for a year to have some pitch side advertising. But if you get it through the crowdfunder, we'll actually do that at £300 for you. So you're saving money on your annual sponsorship. We're getting money on our crowdfunder, and we're also going to shout about your support. So it's that mutually kind of beneficial approach when it comes to those local businesses. For schools and colleges, it might be that you set up a fundraising challenge, or you might be taking some of your coaches out on the road and they can come and actually do a taster session at the schools. And in return, you would ask, please, could you circulate our crowdfunding campaign in your PTA WhatsApp groups? Could we put a poster up in the staff room? All those types of things. They're very different messages depending on who you're talking to. So keeping that communication varied is really important, and working out which message resonates best about your project with those groups. Just to go back to that quickly, when it comes to existing members, it could be because actually they are directly going to benefit from this project. So that's the angle that you're going with them. Varying that communication as well. So if you would normally send a newsletter out to the members, brilliant, do that. If you would normally have a face-to-face conversation with those local businesses, wonderful. Go and speak to them in person. Maybe get some flyers or posters printed that you could drop off at different venues as well. Keep the communication varied. Try and keep up personal contacts wherever possible, and try not to just have a kind of blanketed promotion approach. Try and make sure that you are communicating in a way that resonates best with each group of people, leading with what matters to them the most, and then keeping up that communication throughout the whole campaign as well. So posting updates to your page, which is a function that you can access on your live campaign. Going back to people who you might not heard from and give them a nudge, or thanking people that have supported you so far. So I would always recommend actually having a way to keep track of that. And it might be a spreadsheet, it might just be a massive piece of paper, whatever works for you, having a way to actually see what's working and what's not. So I would also recommend doing this as a group of people if you can. We know people do it on their own. That's amazing, but it's always nicer to do it with a group of you, whether that's a committee, some members, or parents of the younger members, whatever that might be, some volunteers. Think about listing who those audiences are. So going back to that previous slide, how you're going to contact them, and then where you are at with that promotion. So just a little example here, when it comes to the primary school, the method of communication is word of mouth, because there's some parents on the committee whose children go there, so they can have chats at the school gates and all those types of things. You're thinking about doing a fundraising event at the school, so you're going to speak to the PTA. You're going to ask them to send out an email as well, put it in the WhatsApp chat, and the status is that fundraising day is being arranged with the school. And obviously you would then update that status once that fundraising day rolls around, or you've got something confirmed. It helps everyone know what's going on, and it helps you to be reactive throughout the live campaign, being able to refer to something that you've set up in the planning rather than constantly having to think on your feet about ways to promote it. I've mentioned rewards a few times. Rewards can be a great way not only to incentivize people to give a little bit more, but also a really great talking point when it comes to promoting your campaign. So this is actually our guest project for today, and they had some wonderfully varied rewards on their page. One of the ones that I absolutely love is where are we? The sip and paint experience. And that one actually sold through when it comes to people opting for that reward. So it was a lovely evening of kind of painting and having a drink and socializing with friends. Obviously, that goes beyond the core demographic of members. That's a really lovely thing to offer out to the community as a whole. But then you also have those kind of club-facing rewards, such as club merchandise or sponsorship. We know that offering rewards on your page can boost the amount of people, the amount of the pledge amount. God, I can't get my words out today, by around 30%. So those that are offering rewards on their page are typically raising more money than those that aren't. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to claim your rewards and they're all going to fly out the door. What it does mean is that you have a great talking point. You've got a reason to go and ask people to support you because you can ask them to offer a reward. So already it's kind of like those icebreakers, if you like. It gives you things to promote and focus on throughout the campaign and incentivizes people to give a little bit more as well. So definitely consider adding those if you can. So why does crowdfunding and cricket work so well? I'd like to invite Justin onto the call and we can have a little chat about the kind of history, if you like, of cricket and crowdfunding because we've seen it be really successful, haven't we, especially over recent years. What would you say is the kind of common factor with that? Why do you think cricket does crowdfund so well?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so thanks, Zoe. I think one of the sort of interventions that we looked at in the past couple of years was very much looking at investing into our recreational cricket boards. So we ran a train the trainer course with yourself in 2024, where we had staff from across all of the county boards came and did the sort of the expert training, and then they were able to go and work with their clubs on a more local level, for example. And we've seen in the past couple of years that the number of projects have hugely gone up because of that, and it's something that we're gonna roll out again in a few weeks' time. But I think it's been I guess one being able to give that support to clubs on a local level, but then having a high number of successful clubs to almost have case studies for as well to say, look, there are a number of clubs that have had similar projects like you, whether it's been around facility investments or women and girls, as we've had a sort of strategic push on in the past couple of years, and there's been a lot of clubs that have done it successfully that we've been able to learn and showcase from. But I think the other sort of the other ones that we've really seen as being successful in the past couple of years, and you've sort of alluded to it in your slides there, so is around just how crowdfunding can really open clubs up to the local community and really sort of getting that buy-in, and ultimately widening that sort of scope from what I tend to call like the club bubble. Like the same volunteers doing the same jobs where you advertise your project, you speak to parents, you speak to potentially local schools, local businesses, and it really emphasizes that sort of community hub and everybody buying in for that. And I think if we just look at the number of the projects and successful projects we've particularly had in the last few years, it's it's sort of only going in one direction, and we really hope that it'll continue. I think the other one for us is that I think crowdfunder it's hugely successful in unlocking other funding as well. So whether that's from ECB funds or that the match funding that Becky's spoken to from Sport England this afternoon, or other funding opportunities maybe on a regional or a local level, ultimately having that match funding already guaranteed puts any other sort of funding but in a hugely advantageous position there. So yeah, it's definitely something that we are going to continue to advocate and really support and push that more clubs do it as funding streams do get slightly more challenging as we're seeing over the last couple of years, that there are less pots of money available, and this is a hugely successful opportunity that is available.
Amazing. And you're so right there to touch upon that actually one thing that we kind of advocate for as well here is with crowdfunding being a really good way to unlock future funds because it becomes like impact evidence. So, you're really evidencing your community engagement by raising money from people around you and
Yeah.
having a page, flooded with support, being able to say to a potential future funder, whether that is a local authority or a different fund that you're going for, we managed to raise X amount of money and 300 members of our community backed us and they said this about how great we are. That's all really important evidence that's difficult to gather from behind closed doors. Like this is all very public, which is great. Have you noticed any of the clubs that you kind of engage with talking about any of those other benefits that they might have noticed? So maybe increased awareness or strengthened partnerships, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the biggest benefit that we've heard loud and clear is just like you said there, Zoe, like the increased awareness of the club, the more people from the local community who are getting involved, who potentially didn't know about the club previously or what the club, what potentially their plans were, and they've sort of really bought into it as well. I think the real big one that we've heard a lot is the engagement from local businesses and sort of their support with it as well, whether that's, whether actually putting something towards the crowdfunder page or then increased advertising or sponsorship for the club as a whole, or, wanted to, or ultimately as well, we've seen more people get involved in the actual day-to-day running of the clubs as well. So whether that's actually on the grass in a coaching capacity or sort of more behind the scenes as volunteers as well, it's the benefits of being tenfold really. And I think one of the other ones as well, like that you've touched on there, is just having that evidence for future funding has played a hugely it's been hugely successful to unlock sort of further funding down the line, that clubs have been able to, to evidence that we've got X amount of supporters who've raised X amount of pounds that we can now put towards another project or enhance that project further. That's just been hugely beneficial to working towards their sort of their longer term goals or whatever's written in their club development plan, so to speak. So, and I guess the other one is just increased volunteers is always helping to spread the workload a little bit. And I think, I'm a volunteer at my club as well, and if any new volunteer who walks through the door, it's just an amazing thing that you get more support, and it just takes that workload off those, the same people year on year, which can only be a benefit longer term.
Amazing. That's really nice to hear. And I can see loads of questions flooding in. What we'll do, Justin's going to be here for the Q&A towards the end. If I say my goodbyes to you for a moment, and then we're going to speak to Simon about his experience of being a project owner,
Yeah,
and then we
no
can
problem.
answer all those questions. Hi, Simon. Thank you for joining us. I do have, pull up a slide. Love a slide. Just a little bit of information about Simon's recent project. So the Cheadle Hulme Ladybridge Cricket Club raised just over £22,000 from 161 members of their community. I really love this project because it was a really nice, I've mentioned it with the rewards, a really nice mix of those community focused and club focused rewards. And I did have a little sneaky look through their social media channels, and I loved the types of promotion that were going out there and things that were being kind of updated on. So I mentioned that particular reward, the sip and paint reward, and actually seeing that there was a post on social media about that evening was really nice. It was kind of that full circle moment. So I'd love to welcome Simon and find out a
Hi.
little bit more about your experience. So could you tell us a bit more about your project?
Sure. Thanks, Zoe. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Simon Clark from Cheadle Ladybridge Cricket Club, as Zoe's mentioned. We ran a crowdfunding project in June and July of last year, 2025, for a new all-weather net practice facility. And I think it's important to say the crowdfunder part was a really important, but one piece of a larger jigsaw. In our case, we were trying to raise £60,000 in total. And we ran a successful campaign, as you've seen, £22,000, including £10,000 matching from Sport England's movement fund, which was great. But also importantly, as Justin's mentioned, it's also helped us unlock an ECB county grant. And we also had a little bit more local funding as well. We're quite near Manchester Airport where we are, and we got some funding there as well. So I guess the first thing I'd say about our project was, if you're thinking about it now, get onto the crowdfunder page, have a good look, and really understand what's needed. and engage your community, obviously, well in advance of setting up your crowdfunder. In our case, we told our community about our crowdfunder starting at the beginning of May. And it actually started early June. So we had a clear month, really, of getting ideas from all sections, whether that was women and girls or seniors or juniors or whatever, as to how they might be able to help us, which then also sparked what we might want to put on rewards pages, etc. And by reaching out to the community, I mean, a couple of examples. One of the juniors, his dad runs an Indian restaurant, and he offered to give us some food, etc., and serve all that at cost. We then thought, oh, we'll run an Indian quiz night, which we did very successfully with 80 people, and we're able to get great funding from that. Zoe's pointed out the paint and sip. Again, one of the partners of someone that plays the club gets involved in some painting, and they said, well, we could run a paint and sip session. That sold out really quickly, actually. And those were two examples that also did work on social media, because the local community were happy to spend sort of 25, 30 pounds coming down and having an evening with us, including people that we'd never met before. As was alluded to before, just talking about us running a crowdfunder on social media was, yes, of interest, but probably in truth didn't necessarily. I don't think lots of people hopped on the page and said, here's an extra 10 or 20 pounds, etc. But as I say, we first of all engaged all of the all parts of the club. Our crowdfunder did last 8 weeks, actually, and I know there's some guidance that says 4 weeks maybe enough, might be more than enough. We found, because we did it in the middle of the season when we still had the All Stars and Dynamos and Juniors and all the sections really involved, it was okay to run it for 8 weeks. I mean, what it did do, and I think Justin touched on this, it sort of galvanized the community. You often in your cricket club have lots of ideas spinning around, don't you? But it focused minds. It made sure we ran a series of events. We run a fun day every year anyway, but we tagged on a junior cricket tournament that was run then by the junior cricket teams, and people paid to enter the tournament into our crowdfunder. It was a mad 8 weeks, if I'm honest, and in order to get the matching, as you'll realise, we were setting out for £10,000 of the matching, so we had to raise a minimum of £10,000. And again, that really focuses the minds. We raised 12,000 as it happened. Also worth mentioning, as a community amateur sports club, we were able to gift aid against quite a few parts of it. So we raised over £2,000 more in that way. Again, you have to send off an application to the HMRC, but the way the site's set up, you can do that very efficiently and effectively, and sort of download at the end all the people that have gift aided and send that to the HMRC. So yeah, I guess that's the sort of the headlines of our crowdfunder. At the start of it, we had one of the women's and girls section tell people, it was about a 90-second video about what was coming down the line. Again, we could use that on social media. We did updates of that regularly, let people know we're up to, and then at the end, when we'd been successful, we were able to sort of announce where we'd arrived at. Just one thing that we probably did a few things wrong in truth, but one learning that we had was it was going so well that about 6 weeks in, we decided we'd do an end of season additional fundraiser, which, as it happened, was a sort of climb up Snowdon. And loads of people said this was a great idea. We were going to do that in September. And actually, by the time we got close to it, we realised actually that we'd kind of used all our resource and our energy in June and July. So that part didn't really work. It didn't stop us getting any matching or whatever. But just to say, I personally think from our experience, 6 to 8 weeks of intense activity, all the factions all the parts of the club involved, helped us run a successful campaign.
Amazing. And I completely agree with you. I think it's almost from our side now, we kind of give people the ability to run up to kind of 12 weeks themselves. And that really is tied to the fact that we work with a third party payment provider and they need to start being able to pay out funds at that time. And what we're finding is people are running longer campaigns than they used to. And I think some of that is to do with the fact that people are getting much better at understanding the process and understanding how to keep that messaging varied. Because I think when it's a long campaign and people tune out from the "we're crowdfunding, please give us your money" message, you can find you have a bit of a lull in the middle of your campaign, which can be quite hard to combat unless you've got a plan in place. And that's why we would always say, kind of keep it short and sharp, and you can throw all your energy at it. But actually, if you've got capacity to maintain a project, an effective project for that long, absolutely go for it. And if you've got things going on already in your calendar of events or to do with the club, like, the fun day and all these types of different things that you can incorporate into the messaging of the campaign and the fundraising effort overall, then definitely go for it. And so much of it comes down to the planning element, and you did that really well. Understanding that crowd before you've even launched to know what kind of rewards they might want to see, or to warm up that crowd and say, this is what we're planning on doing, and then going back to them and kind of chasing them up for that support is exactly what we want to see. So yeah, you did a really, really good job of crowdfunding, and we've had a few. We'll roll into the Q&A, I think, now. So if Becky and Justin want to pop your cameras and your mics on, we've had some really interesting questions come in for you, Simon. In terms of, you mentioned there that the crowdfunder was a smaller element, or an element, I should say, of a bigger overall fundraising need of around 60,000. How, and this is a question for you and Becky, I imagine, how does that play into running the crowdfunder? So setting your target for that amount, and also then any of the Sport England funding, because obviously the actual project itself is a much bigger financial cost than the 20,000 that Simon was raising on his page. I don't know if Becky, do you want to start with the Sport England side of things?
Sorry, I missed the start of the question 'cause I'm still trying to find my video, but
That's
I
okay.
think I got it. So if it's a project that's larger than the 15,000 that we're looking to do, so say 60,000 like Simon's, is that right? Am I on the right? Yeah.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
are.
So in terms of the match funding going towards the crowdfunding campaign, the actual project itself costs quite a lot more. How
Yeah.
does that work with the matching?
It's a really good question. At Sport England, we would rather see the majority of the partnership funding in place before applying. So, for example, you might have raised money or have money within the club accounts that you could use. You might have been supported from the ECB, or you might have a fund from elsewhere. So say, for example, that took you to 30,000 and you're still looking for 30,000. Obviously, it'd be 15,000 from us if successful, and you guys would need to then raise 15,000. There are a number of organisations that have managed to surpass their initial target. So maybe they've set it for 30,000 inclusive of our pledge. And also some that I've supported have managed to get up to 80,000 as well. So there is potential to raise that extra money. But in terms of us as an extra funder, we would like to some security that a lot of the partnership funding is in place prior to us making an award.
Fab. And in terms of the messaging then, Simon, one thing that we would probably recommend is obviously, somewhere on the page or within the promotion, it's kind of saying that this crowdfunding campaign is part of the bigger picture. Is that kind of the messaging that you went with your promotion on the fundraising?
We had raised £25,000 already over the previous sort of 18 months. We therefore let people know that if they could support the crowdfunder, that we would be a long way to achieving that aim. And then in speaking with the ECB as well, it gave them confidence. Really, all your funders really want to be the last 10 or the last 20,000, don't they, to make sure it gets over the line rather than the first part of that. So again, it gave the ECB and Sport England confidence that we would get over the line, and indeed we did. And the crowdfunder really was I say the final part. It was a really important part, but it was a big part of getting the ECB and Sport England over the line as well.
I love that because you've just given away one of the 5 tips to success as well for a general crowdfunding campaign, which is when you launch your campaign, make sure you've actually got some promises of pledges that you can get straight onto that page before you start going out to a wider audience. Just as Simon said there, people are more likely to kind of get behind your fundraising, your crowdfunding campaign, if when they look at it, they can see it's already got support. So in terms of the messaging from the club there, it's like, we've done this much work towards it. This is kind of the final push. And I think that's a really lovely message for people to engage with. Um, another question for Simon around gift aid. So in terms of adding gift aid there's a few different issues in terms of what gift aid can be applied to. Kind of how simple was that process of enabling gift aid on your page?
Yeah, it was simple enough. Anyone donating, as you say, it has to meet the right categories, but anyone donating, whether that's paint and sip or the Indian quiz night or taking a sponsorship banner or whatever, could could agree to gift aid just as you would on a, I don't know, just giving site or whatever. And then we found it was really useful at the end that you can then go in and download a report that literally gives a list that has names and addresses and donations of everybody that's given the gift aid. I literally, as we do on our annual submission to the HMRC, put that in as a separate one, and they paid it within days. So it was very straightforward and was helpful from the crowdfunder site.
Amazing. This is an interesting one. They have a question about funding that they've already secured. So this is relevant for Becky, I'd say, in terms of match funding, but also from a crowdfunding side of things. So if you've already secured some funding towards your project, they're wanting to know how they can add that onto the funding page. What I would say is if you've already secured funding, I wouldn't necessarily be adding it onto the page, but I would be mentioning it somewhere in the actual copy of the page to say, just like Simon did in their case, we've already raised X amount of money towards this overall project. So you can reflect it in what you're writing, but you wouldn't necessarily need to kind of add it onto the page. I would just be thinking about what does your target need to be to reflect the amount that you've already raised as well. And I know that Becky, you've got kind of rules in place when it comes to the match funding as well.
Yeah, that's right. So you were spot on there. We would only really accept match funding on the campaign, added directly to the campaign that's been raised within the award period for that project specifically. So if any fundraising, I know someone had mentioned that they'd used a different platform to raise some money towards a project. That can be considered within the application and it can be reflected, as you said, on the campaign, but we wouldn't consider that match funding.
Fab, thank you. One thing I should mention as well, we've got a webinar coming up on it next week, is a really exciting new function where if you were having conversations with businesses, local authorities, corporates, and maybe they wanted to offer you a little bit of match funding towards your project, as long as that's happening within the time of your crowdfunding campaign, you can actually apply to us to have them added as a match funder that you bring to your project. So that can be a really nice way to visibly boost your fundraising activity and have the amount of money that your supporters are donating matched in real time. So that's something to consider, and I can add that into the follow-up email. But ultimately, everything needs to be happening kind of whilst you're doing this crowdfunding campaign as opposed to retrospective funding. An interesting one from Claire, this comes up quite a lot. What if we don't make our target? Okay, this is an interesting one because what we've seen is that actually 98% of our projects that come through the platform are something called Keep What You Raise, which means no matter how much money they raise, whether they hit their target or not, they walk away with what they've raised from their crowd, which is really lovely if you can make use of any money that you need. Yeah. So whether it's £5, whether it's £50,000. If you've got a piece of equipment, for example, that costs a certain amount of money, let's say it's £10,000 to buy a mower, I don't know, let's just say, If you know you're not going to be able to make use of that money unless you raise that £10,000, you might decide to be an all or nothing campaign. And what that essentially means is if you do not hit your target, Crowdfunder refunds everybody and you don't need to worry about the admin of refunding people. So there's two different mechanisms that you can choose. Something to be mindful of is even as a keep what you raise project, so even if you can make use of any of that money that you're raising and you opt for it to be a keep what you raise, you would still need to hit your target. So you'd still need to raise 100% of your target amount to secure the match funding from Sport England. That's one of the kind of my words fail me today, but that's essentially one of the requirements for the fund. And we've also had somebody asking Becky, just to reiterate those 25 unique supporters. So what does that mean in terms of the milestones that they would need to reach to release the pledge? If you could
Yeah.
recap on that.
So 25 unique supporters, that's 25 individual people or organisations, so like businesses can donate as well. It just means that some people might decide to donate twice or three times, but they only count as one individual unique supporter. So that's what we mean by unique supporters. So if I was to donate to one crowdfunder and I donated twice, I would only be counted as one unique supporter.
Fab. And this one comes up a lot as well. Just to recap, does the Sport England match funding count towards the target?
Yes. Yeah. So we would agree the amount that we're providing in terms of match funding prior to at the point of award. So for example, if we agreed 10,000 and you would need to set your target at 20,000 inclusive of our pledge. And when our pledge lands, that goes towards your total. If you were to be lucky enough to reach your target, add a stretch target and raise even more money, that's brilliant, but we wouldn't be able to provide any more funding than what has already been agreed.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. I can see there's a couple of different chats, a couple of different messages in the chat. What I'll do is I'll collate those and I'll see if I can cover some of them off in the follow-up email because there's a few people asking similar things. I just want to pull up the last few slides and just to run through some hints and tips and how to get in contact with us and Sport England. All that remains really for the panel is to say a massive thank you to Simon for sharing your experience, Justin as well for being here representing the ECB and sharing kind of your experience of partnering with us as well. And of course, Becky, although we couldn't see your lovely face, we could hear all of your expertise. So, and you're part of the team that people can reach out to and contact with eligibility questions as well. So please do get in touch. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Justin. I'm going to bring up these last few slides and then I will let you all get on with your lunches because I'm sure you've been spending your lunchtime with us. So thank you very much for spending it with us today. Right. Okay, so just a few hints and tips then to get you started. We mentioned there, and Simon did it with kind of warming up that crowd as well, and also raising some of that money prior because it was a big project. Starting strong is really important. So actually planning and making sure that you understand who that crowd is, who is that group of people you're going to go out to in order to bring in some of those donations and kind of rally and galvanize around your project. So the first couple of days are really important when you go live with your project. I would recommend actually launching a project kind of under the radar. Nobody's going to see it unless you start shouting about it. So what I always recommend to do is go live with your project, go back to your very core audience. So that's going to be friends and family, maybe existing members, maybe people who have promised that they're going to donate in those early days, and actually get them putting those pledges onto the page. Once you have a little bit of support, ideally, if you can raise 10% of your target from that group of people, amazing. If not, just a really nice kind of healthy amount of support and supporters. Maybe aim for that 25% or 25 individual supporters might be a good thing to focus on to unlock the funding. Anyway, at that point, once you have a bit of support, that's the time that you would do more of a public launch. So that's when you're going to start maybe putting it out into a newsletter, or maybe posting something on social media, going out to the schools, all those different groups that we talked about. That is really going to help people look at your project and see that it's really credible, it's already getting support, and that's going to incentivize them to give as well. Set realistic goals. So that might be a portion of an overall project, just like Simon's project there. It might be that you want to do something that's phased. So you might be thinking about actually raising a certain amount of money now and coming back and raising a bit more later on. Think about the amount of people that you might be able to reach in terms of generating those pledges and support. Is your target achievable? Think about the minimum that you need in order to make your project happen. And even with a minimal target, think about breaking it down into milestones and small goals throughout the whole campaign. That again is going to help you to promote your campaign in a really palatable way for your audience. And it's going to help them to feel that their 10, 15, 20 pounds is going towards helping you towards your next milestone, which is ultimately helping your overall journey. Really strong storytelling is important. So incorporating visuals, maybe a video, just like Simon mentioned with their project. They've got a really lovely, catchy video. It's short, it's easily shareable. It says exactly what it needs to I think the one on the page is only about 45 to 50 minutes long. It's not long at all. And it says everything it needs to. So face to camera, can do it on a phone, and literally who you are, what you're raising money for, how people can help you, why you're crowdfunding. Being authentic is important. So making sure that you are showing the personality of the organization, being human. Always try and make sure that you are being as transparent and honest as possible. It can be scary, but actually it's a great way to build awareness around the club itself. People might not understand that actually there is a funding need. So just being open and honest and authentic throughout the whole process. And we've mentioned there staying connected with your supporters too. There's a huge amount of support available to you to help you to do this successfully. Webinars, drop-in sessions, the Knowledge Hub on the platform is full of wonderful advice. Our help centre has been written by our incredible customer support team who know everything there is to know about the inner workings of the platform and also how to do this successfully. So do check the help centre first, and you can contact support also. And then the live project dashboard, that's where you can apply for funding and manage every aspect of your campaign as well. Do reach out to us. You can contact the Movement Fund team directly, give them a call or drop them an email. Any eligibility questions, do feel free to get in touch with them. If you have any crowdfunder specific questions, come along to one of our Q&As or get in touch with our support team. We ultimately want to see you raising money to get your projects off the ground and to be financially self-sufficient is the right word, or that stability. We want to see you being able to grow as organizations, being financially stable as these kind of uncertain times when it comes to things like grants and the fundraising landscape itself can be quite difficult to navigate. So we are all here to support you in order to raise the money that you need. So add your project to Crowdfunder, start drafting that project, working with your community of people around you, helping them to understand your needs, getting them to feedback as well to help you shape your project. Ultimately, launch that project on the platform and start telling your crowd and start raising those funds. And do keep in touch with us as well. So follow us on socials for inspiring project stories and any news of funds launching and anything happening in Crowdfunderland. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. We managed to squeeze it in, I think, in the hour. I know we started late, so thank you for bearing with us. Good luck with your fundraising efforts, and we look forward to seeing you launch on the platform soon. Thank you very much.